All right. I hope everyone enjoyed lunch. I appreciate the session after lunch because I get to do interesting and creative user experiments. So, because it's nice and warm in here, you guys just ate lunch. Maybe you're not paying as much attention. So I get to do things like make big, bold, sweeping statements and see who's really paying attention and who's not. So, a couple of administrative notes. I may use the word deck plate, and for us, that's just another way for communicating shop floor, work environment, trades area. So just kind of wanted to translate that for you. And then I talk with my hands, and I've noticed that these microphones are conveniently located precisely at hand talking height. So hopefully you guys won't get any loud bangs. So my name is Mark Lawrence. I'm from Newport News Shipbuilding. And just a little bit about the company. We develop, design, maintain, and provide, in some cases, training for nuclear aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, and through our sister shipyards, destroyers, Coast Guard cutters, several other naval ships, classes, all that kind of stuff. So we are kind of a city building cities, and so we have plenty of use cases and opportunity. And we started looking into augmented reality maybe 4.5 years ago as a potential solution for a lot of our opportunities and use cases. And so this is kind of built out of that. And Christine asked me to talk to you today about training. And so I've kind of combined two presentations that my colleagues gave at AWE for training AR authors, and then also some end user training. So get into that. All right. So who here can spot the large and generally sweeping statement that is bold and exciting? Probably that middle point right there, right? End users don't need AR training. So I'm just testing you guys, making sure you're awake and paying attention. So obviously I'm going to quantify a lot of this stuff. So what I do want to clarify is that I'm going to talk to you about training for augmented reality, not training with augmented reality. So those are kind of two separate and distinct objects, right? So there's an expertise that needs to be developed within this space, which are people who can author augmented reality and people who can use augmented reality. But then there's also actually using augmented reality to train people on other things. So complex systems, perhaps processes, procedures, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be talking to you today about training for augmented reality. So, big, awesome statement. End users do not need AR training. How many of you have that experience? Yeah, okay. So, this is actually kind of a goal statement for us at Newport News. Our philosophy when we're designing our applications, when we're doing all the work that we need to do to deliver applications to the guys on the deck plate in the shop floor, is that if they don't need training, then we've done our job. So it should be an intuitive application. They should be able to pick it up. They should be able to understand how to use it on a general sense without us being too involved. And kind of the example I like to use for that is I'm imagining most of you in here are using a smartphone, and I'm imagining that most of you didn't pay to go to a week-long class to learn how to use that smartphone. So you picked it up, you started playing with it, maybe looked through the manual a couple times, but largely didn't have to sit down and receive training on that. What we found is that enterprise authors are actually kind of sneaking within your organization and you didn't even know it. So Newport News has taken a multidiscipline approach, which I'll get into in a second, to combine people into enterprise AR authors. So most of you work within a three-dimensional space. So a lot of you probably already have people who can work with three-dimensional models. They know how to massage it, kind of get it to the size that you need, or get the metadata out of it that you need, or convert it into some new format that you guys are working with. So you already have some of those guys. Chances are some of you already have some software developers, and chances are some of you guys have some engineers in your organization. And so we like to think that those people are all actually AR authors, and that talent is just waiting to be tapped. And so we have developed several classes of AR leadership within Newport News. And the roles are probably familiar. We just kind of put AR in front of it. So one of the things, the first group are AR engineers. And at Newport News, these take on a lot of a lot of faces. So we have mechanical engineers, industrial engineers, we have electrical engineers, chemical, everything. And so these guys are all within your organizations or in your clients' organizations, and they're already operating. And what we like to do is just take them and ask them to solve the problems that they were already solving, but using augmented reality. So taking that talent, they've already spent years and years getting their certifications, going through schooling. And so we take that and tap into that talent and use it for augmented reality. And our next class is AR designers. Again, we kind of talked about this. Most of you guys probably have, or your clients have, three-dimensional expertise built into the organization. So we have a couple that just, you give them a model and you say, I need it lightweight, I need these metadata pieces out of it, and I need it to be in this format. And, 3 weeks later, they come back to you, they say, here you go, and here's, what you needed. So again, we just take that and we tap that talent, we tap those expertise, and we feed that into augmented reality. So we just, same idea. We have a three-dimensional asset. I need it to look like this so that I can use it in my AR application. And, hopefully they've got the expertise and they can go do that. And in some cases, we'll train them on some of the very, niche specifics. And then our last quality is AR developers. These are kind of what most people probably traditionally assume as software developers. These are the code slingers, the guys who know C#, Java, whatever it is that you guys are working in. And we just ask them to apply, again, their talents to the augmented reality world. And so what we have here are some really nice overlaps where, say, between engineers and designers, that's where the application really takes form. That's where the problem really gets solved. That's the guy taking the model and the engineer is using that model to address the issue. And then, maybe between designers and developers, that's where the GUI comes into place. And that's where, certain design elements take form. And the designers are asked to code specific pieces for, the developers are asked to code pieces for the designers. And then in the middle is just, that's where the application is born. So you're taking all these expertises that you already had, that you've already spent years and years and years developing. They just need some training to accommodate augmented reality. And so what we've done there is we have at Newport News 2 full-time training experts developing a 3-month, 13-course curriculum. Now that sounds kind of daunting task, but it's actually a combination of on-the-job training, instructor-led training, web-based training, and job aids. So it's not necessarily these guys are sitting in a room with an instructor for 3 months going over learning new things. These are, they learn a certain skill set, and then we'll put them on the job to kind of reinforce that skill set, and they'll learn from somebody who's already been doing it. And then, then they might go back and pick up another skill set, and then we'll put it back on the job or give them a job aid to kind of keep them moving through that. So one of the reasons that we really felt that this was going to be incredibly important is that in our job, we have to ensure engineering rigor, right? So our ships go out, they protect the warfighter, they're used in dangerous situations, they encounter disastrous situations, they get attacked. And so our ships have to be built well to maintain, to withstand those conditions. And so part of what, and Carl mentioned it during his talk, is that there has to be trust when you're doing an augmented reality application. So the guys on the deck plate, they have to trust that what you're giving them is accurate, up to date, and going to inform them on the best way to build that, to produce that, whatever it is that they're being asked to do. And so we have to, on our end, ensure that that is true. And so we have testing put into place, and again, we've developed this training curriculum to ensure that the people that we're using to develop these applications can deliver that trustworthy product. And here's kind of just a brief schedule. All right, so we think that user testing is critical to product success. And so what we mean by that is that we like to test for success. We don't want to train for success. So when we take an application down to the guys, we don't want to have to sit over their shoulders and say, all right, now you touch this. Okay, all right, well, that didn't work, so now you touch this. We test for those things, and we let them use it, right? We kind of avoid the Hawthorne effect. If somebody is sitting there watching you, you're going to perform your tasks very differently than if you were, being allowed to do it on your own. So we deliver the application and we ask for honest, critical feedback. And then we as developers, designers, and engineers take that feedback and try to work it back into our applications rather than going to the end user and saying, well, you're not using it correctly. This is what you need to be doing instead. Okay? So they definitely, again, need to be extremely functional and kind of counterintuitively maybe does not usually need to be aesthetically pleasing. So the guys down on the deck plate, the guys on the shop floor, they're not looking for big flashy GUI elements and awesome, crazy great animations. Usually, nice to have if you have the time. I don't know how many of us have a whole lot of time to spend doing that, but it is important that they are functional. So everything is where they would anticipate it to be. Again, some of these people that you're delivering these applications to, they've started to use their smartphones. They've started to have expectations of where things will be, where the back button might be, or those types of things. So they need to be functional, but they don't have to be flashy and amazing. So what does success at Newport News Shipbuilding look like? So what are we trying to accomplish? Training to author augmented reality, it takes time. It's, not only do you have to clear the hurdles, the standard hurdles of any software engineering designing task, they also have to kind of understand the capabilities of augmented reality, which are very different than what some people are kind of used to doing. And especially in organizations that have embedded talent sets that have been working within a particular framework for a long time. So for 128 years at Newport News Shipbuilding, we've developed quite the tradition. And some of these engineers, some of the designers, they're very used to working within those traditions. And so it's hard sometimes to say, I want you to kind of move away from that process that you know, that you've learned, that you've trained, and I want you to come and adopt our new process. So multidisciplinary collaboration is extremely, extremely valuable. Again, you have a lot of these, and your clients have a lot of these talent sets built into the system already. There's engineers, there's designers, there's software developers in many organizations, but they all have to come together in order to make successful augmented reality applications. They can't, working separately, again, back to what Carl was talking about, those silos. Sometimes those silos are very hard to bridge, but it needs to be bridged. And we at Newport News expect our engineers and our developers and our designers at the end of the day to test their products for user adoption and not train for user adoption. So going back to my big, bold, sweeping statement that end users don't need training, that's our goal. That's not necessarily always true, but that's what we're striving to work for. And so we also want to present it's kind of two presentations put together. So there are some AR for training for the actual end users that I want to talk about as well. And all right, pay attention point. What's the big, bold, sweeping statement? It's kind of a combination of 2 bullet points, right? Historically, building with computers never worked. Big, bold, sweeping statement, right? So let me quantify that. At Newport News Shipbuilding, we work in a lot of tight spaces, a lot of dirty spaces, and a lot of spaces that are actually incredibly difficult to get to. So we tried, you try building with laptops. Well, it's really hard to lug a laptop around an under construction aircraft carrier. It's just not easy. So the next thing, we have rover, we have cave environments, we have virtual reality environments, right? But that involves the worker leaving the workplace. Well, if you're down in the bilge of an aircraft carrier and you have to go and leave your workplace, that could be a half-hour task in some cases, because in some cases the way you got to where you were working isn't accessible anymore. And so you have to find another route. And so if you take 45 minutes of getting off the boat to go investigate a cave environment or look into a training piece or something like that or talk to your foreman, then you have to get 45 minutes to get back on the boat, and that's an hour and a half of work, right? So that's kind of quantifying my awesome, bold statement. And in some cases, the cost hurdle can be incredibly high. So not everybody can afford to just go out, get rover environments, get cave environments, implement them. They may not have the space to implement them. They might not have the infrastructure to implement them. So we kind of experienced in some cases it was pretty high. So there are some things that end users do need to know. So when I was talking about, end users don't need training, not necessarily true again, but that's our goal. But there are some things that they do need to understand. So the fundamentals of tracking. So whether that tracking is based on their space, whether it's object tracking, whether it's fiducial markers, they have to understand how that works, right? So one of our favorite experiences is when you first show someone augmented reality. We typically break them in easy and we use an image target. So put an image on the wall, and all right, point the iPad device, whatever it is, at the target, and they'll see something, and then the first thing they'll do is they'll go, "Whoa!" And they'll leave the target, right? So understanding how it is that information, that digital information, is being overlaid on the physical world or augmented reality, how that works is critical to the end users, right? So if it's object tracking or edge tracking and they never line up the edges of that object with the physical world, they'll never obtain tracking, and then therefore the application will be a failure to them. One of the things, it's a definite delicate line that we play with failure, right? For us, failing to produce an application that is meaningful to the worker, for us, is useful sometimes because we've investigated in a use case and we've established that maybe that wasn't the most value-added use case. But for the deck plate guys, they've been delivered tool after tool after tool after tool. And when it fails, they throw it away quickly. And they revert back to whatever the process or procedure was before. And so it's very important for us that we get some of these fundamentals down. So if they don't understand tracking and they're spending all day with an iPad tracking, even though augmented reality is cool and a great application, they may end up giving up on it. So it's definitely important for them to understand some of the fundamentals of how your application works. And then, obviously, at our company, we access a lot of secure information. There's a lot of different information levels that have to be accommodated. And so your end users will need to understand the policies and procedures that have been put in place. Because in many cases, well, in our case, they haven't been able to utilize a tool like this since they've been working there. So it's hard for them to just, oh, can I take pictures of it? Can I take video with it? Well, hold on, not yet. We're still working through some of those barriers. But so they'll need to be educated on the policies and procedures that are in place with the tool that they're utilizing. And then again, back to the statement earlier, the goal for a successful AR user training is that there is little or none. So you explain how the tracking works, you explain some of the policies and procedures to make sure they don't trip themselves up, and then you let them go. And hopefully if your application is designed well and developed well, they'll be able to intuitively utilize that application. So I'm going to hope that this works. We'll see.
My mechanics, they excellent. They love it. They said it's excellent. It's the best tool we ever had for like information.
It was great. I mean, it has an overlay of the job. It gives us a three-dimensional view of what we're looking at, as opposed to the 2D views on the drawing when you flip it back and forth.
Flipping through, flip. Just hit the button. It's pretty much the information was there.
It's a good deal. It eliminates a lot of hassle and saves a lot of time also.
Okay, so real quick, just wanted to throw that out there. None of that was scripted. Those were all tradesmen, trade organization people, welders, pipe fitters. You saw sub-inspectors that we've delivered applications to and then kind of asked, hey, how did that go for you? How did that work? And the feedback that we're getting is that they really enjoy the tool. They really enjoy the tool. Again, we took a lot of time. We did a lot of testing. We involved the users. And we made sure that what we delivered was going to work the first time when they got it. And this is the type of feedback that we get. So this isn't a situation where they're just resistant to a new tool. In fact, they like it. And you saw that it was kind of a diverse range. So some people are questioning, what about the older generations of the workforce? Are they going to adopt? Are they going to be a part of it? They absolutely will if you allow them to understand the fundamentals and deliver a useful application. So again, the onus is back on us to choose use cases carefully. So make sure that the use case that you're trying to accommodate makes sense, right? So in some cases, maybe AR looks cool, looks flashy, could be a great idea. Maybe a vice president's pushing for it or someone, but if it doesn't make sense to adopt AR there, don't do it. Build the AR solutions for success. So again, testing, getting it in front of people, getting people to get that feedback back to you, and then minimal training, because again, some of these craftsmen have gone through weeks or months of training to adopt a new tool or a new procedure, a new product lifecycle management tool or something like that. They have less than favorable inclinations towards sitting in classrooms for hours on end to learn this new tool. So if you can give them something and say, hey, look, here's how the target works, here's the policies and procedures that you're affected by, go ahead and go forth and do great things, you'll generally get a positive reaction to that. So we do have some factors and some challenges that in some cases may require not necessarily training, but informing the user. That, and obviously it's the same thing a lot of us are dealing with in many of our applications, which is depth of field. So we do some large-scale augmentations, and obviously if you stick your hand in front of the camera, that large-scale augmentation gets real small. Obviously that's a challenge that we just kind of have to inform the user on and let them know, hey, look, sometimes you're going to get issues like this, and it's something that we're all working on as a field, as a technology, and when we have a solution, you guys will be the first one to know. And GUIs need to be well thought out, right? So a lot of these guys have been using their applications. They have a standard understanding of what their email application looks like, or where buttons are typically placed these days. We all understand that there's just kind of these standards that are evolving, whether they're written down or not. And so you kind of have to understand those and hopefully deliver an application that accommodates as many of those as possible. So for instance, one of the first things that we see a lot of times when we deliver an application is somebody trying to pinch and zoom the model. Some cases we disable the pinch zoom because we really want people to investigate. We really want people to kind of get embedded in the augmentation, and so we want them to kind of get close with the iPad or back out or move left or move right. And then in other cases we find that it's more useful to just keep the pinch zoom enabled so that they can investigate the model on their own. So we like to keep non-augmented reality elements to a minimum. So we really want to embrace overlaying the digital information on the physical world. And so sometimes we have a tendency to try to deliver a virtual reality environment, but it's augmented on top of the physical world. And sometimes that's too much. So we like to keep that to a minimum. And then again, kind of rehashing the simple is necessary, but not flashy. So you don't have to make the next, UI breaking elements the next is going to be the greatest thing in the world. It can be simple and it can be effective. So one of the things we did, we actually have a PhD candidate in human factors on the team, and so we call her from time to time to do user testing. So we used an application that we developed for a local EPC, and we pulled in a very diverse goal to ensure that it was intuitive. We pulled in a diverse group of people to ensure that it was intuitive. We had all age areas represented within the workforce. We had gender representation. We just kind of tried to spread it all out. And she came back with a score that wasn't going to knock anybody's socks off, but we were actually pretty happy with the result. So it was above average. It was above, kind of the minimum bar, so we were really excited about that, and obviously we took some goals and some lessons learned away from that. So user testing, again, is very important to get it in front of all different types of users and get their feedback. We want the devices to kind of be seen as just another tool. So in many cases, these guys have been delivered more expensive hammers, more expensive screwdrivers than an iPad. Because some of their tools are very highly specialized. we want these tools. We always get the question, a lot of questions, are how are you guys going to ruggedize it? How are you guys going to do all these crazy things with it? And sometimes our answer is we don't. And, you know, if he drops it and then it's a consumable, it's considered a tool. And then we want devices to kind of be invisible, so we don't want people to think about, oh, I'm holding an iPad right now, or I have HMD on my head right now. We want those to kind of go away and those to become commonplace. But obviously, we don't want the devices to disappear. So that's, again, goes back to training your users on the policies of your organization and the procedures within your organization. They might be different for everyone. It might be different for your clients versus you. And so it's just important that the users understand those. Okay, so a couple things that we've kind of picked up along the way that may or may not end up helping you is that AR is technology for people. Does not necessarily replace people. That may or may not benefit you in your organization or in your clientele. But we find that, especially within a unionized labor force, that just using augmented reality to increase productivity within the workforce that you already have is a valuable position for them versus, oh, we're going to take out, you know, this many people. So we want to make people more capable. So in some cases, we have shipbuilders who've been in the shipyard for 30, 40, 50 years. And so there's a lot of expertise there. But if they're working on potentially a job that they've just been doing for a long time and they're experts at it, perhaps we can use their skills and expertise in their job, welding, fitting, whatever, and apply that to a more skill required, a different job that they could be doing that maybe they'd be able to perform even faster. And then use someone else maybe a little bit different to accommodate the job that they were doing. So augmented reality can make people more capable. It helps people focus on value-added work. So big, bold, sweeping statement, right? Reading a drawing is not inherently value-added work, right? So if you're a painter, if you're a welder, if you're a pipe fitter, painting, welding, and pipe fitting is your value-added work, right? That you should be spending more time doing that. So if you're stuck with your head in a drawing, trying to interpret a drawing, trying to interpret work instructions or something like that, you're not doing the things that are value-added. So perhaps augmented reality has plenty of application in getting people back to the value-added work. We believe that it'll change the equation between people and machines. So if augmented reality can make a user into a quick expert on a machine or a quick expert on a system, then, you know, it changes the equation. Do I want a machine to perform that, or can I just use Joe, who already has expertise in that stuff, and deliver him an application that'll allow him to become an expert in that? And that kind of changes the equation, we feel. And then there's obviously always going to be challenges for developers that we have to make these apps intuitive and easy to use. And it really is, it's testing, because you have no idea what their expectations are going to be until you deliver that application. And that our goal as industrial AR engineers, developers and designers, is to make apps that require little or no user training. All right, well then, thank you very much for your time. I hope it was valuable to you, and I think who's next?